Hi guys, today I will show you how I changed a brake line and did a complete brake flush and bleed on my Jaguar X-type. The matter is that my Jaguar's brake line got corroded and leaked. So I got a pre-owned brake line from some Opel I think, and it was in good working condition. The thread of the fitting was good, so I decided to use it. I just didn't want to get special tools for flaring and bending new brake lines, so I decided to use this pre-owned brake line and flush it with a syringe. You see, I take some fresh brake fluid with a syringe and flush the brake line thoroughly, so that to be on the safe side that no remnants or some scraps are inside the brake line. You see, I do a complete flush of the brake line, and the brake fluid is bleeding into the soda bottle. And I did so several times, and I show you the same from another point of view. After that, I got under the car and unscrewed an old brake line with vice grips. I don't intend to use this fitting or the remnants of the leaking brake line anymore, so I can not take any care of saving this fitting for further usage. So I unscrewed the corroded brake line and used it as a pattern when choosing the replacement brake line for my car. You see that after I loosened the fitting with vice grips, I continued unscrewing it with a 17mm wrench and a 10mm wrench. After a while, I could unscrew the fitting with hands. You see, I removed the remnants of the old brake line. After that I took flushed brake line and wrapped its ends with some paper tape to prevent any dust from getting inside the brake line during the process of installing it, and began to thread it between the body of the car and the rear suspension arms, and the rear suspension spring, shock absorbers, and so on and so on. Of course, I know that the brake line should be installed by removing part of rear suspension, maybe the cross beam of the rear suspension, but I didn't intend to remove the rear suspension details, and I decided to thread it between the body of the car and the rear suspension arms, and bent the brake line where it was necessary. I accelerated the video of the process because I wanted just to save your time, but you will have some idea of the process itself. I had to use all my skills, and it took quite a lot of time to get the replacement brake line on its place. Besides, I removed the original soundtrack because I used a lot of, not only my skills, but a lot of words that are rarely used in all the languages. So after the brake line got on its place, it was looking like this. You see, it was not quite easy to connect the brake line with two wrenches and take video at the same time. So that's why I first just connected the brake line and bent it and prepared everything, and after that I just took the video of a result. You can pay attention that the brake line doesn't touch the body of the car and other brake line. Here I just show you that I used a 10mm wrench for the replacement brake line and an 11mm wrench for Jaguar's original brake line. And another issue I faced was that Jaguar's brake line had a fitting with a female thread, and the replacement brake line had also fittings with female thread, and I had to get a special connector to screw these two female fittings to each other. After I got the replacement brake line connected and on its place, I had to flush and bleed the brake system of the car because there was some air. Naturally, there was some air into the replaced brake line. So I will not show you the video removing the wheels of the car, but I had to remove them to get access to the brake system bleeder. I usually put removed wheels under the car for safety reasons. After that, I just took a soda bottle and vice grips to loosen the bleeder screw. I attach a transparent hose to the bleeder screw and put the other end of the hose into the soda bottle and start bleeding the brake system. I opened the bleeder screw with an 11mm wrench and asked my assistant to press the brake pedal. Of course, I could use a one-person method to bleed the brake system, but I preferred to control the quality and the color of the brake fluid bleeding from the brake system. You see, from time to time I had to add fresh brake fluid into the brake fluid reservoir, and I didn't screw the cap too tightly to let some air get into the brake fluid reservoir. Here I also accelerated the video because it was much the same. I asked him to press the brake pedal, I opened the bleeder screw, then tightened it, he released the brake pedal, and so on several times. Here you can see that I control the quality of brake fluid, and when I saw that fresh brake fluid was bleeding from the brake system, we stopped the process. Here you can see that we moved to the front wheel, but the process is much the same here too. I loosened the bleeder with vice grips. It was getting dark here and I switched on flashlights, so the video may be of some worse quality here. After loosening the bleeder with vice grips, I took an 11mm wrench and a transparent hose. I asked my assistant to press the brake pedal also, and opened the bleeder with an 11mm wrench. After that I closed the bleeder and my assistant released the pedal. I also accelerated the video here to save your time because there is nothing new here. From time to time I also had to add some brake fluid into the brake fluid reservoir, and here you can see that I nearly overflowed it. The process of bleeding the brake system was ended by bleeding the brakes of the front left wheel, which is the closest to the brake master cylinder. So after bleeding the front left wheel, I added the brake fluid into the brake fluid reservoir to the necessary level, and the bleeding was completed. Next day I wanted to attach properly the replaced brake line to the body of the car, and since I slightly changed the route of the brake line at the back side, I used some bolt protruding from the body and a piece of hose to prevent the brake line from scratching, and connected it to that bolt with a zip tie. Besides, I coated the replaced brake line with an anti-rust paint, especially the places where the original paint of the brake line was damaged or rusted, so that to prevent it from further corroding. Besides, I also painted the connector with a 3-in-1 anti-rust paint. Afterwards, I cleaned my hand, as always, with vegetable or sunflower oil. After the paint dried, I got some clamps instead of broken ones of Jaguar X-type and installed the clamps on their places so that I could attach the brake lines and secure them from moving and scratching against the body of the car. You can see how I install one of the clamps. And as for the other clamp, it was really in such a place that I could hardly just take video of that place and not of the process of installing that clamp. I just show you the result of the process. So you can see the result of changing the brake lines. They are properly installed, they don't touch anything, they don't prevent the suspension from moving, and the moving suspension, moving arms, maybe shock absorbers Don't touch the brake line, don't damage it. Here you can see the brake pedal of my car. I pressed it, it's solid. The brakes are working perfectly, and if you liked this video, just subscribe to the channel.